Hi, Heather here from Briante Piano Duo. I've been teaching for quite a few years, and I've seen every pedaling mistake in the book. So today I'm going to walk you through some of the most common errors that I see and demonstrate how to fix them. I really believe that today's video can benefit all pianists beginning to advanced level. Yes, advanced. I've worked with quite a few great pianists that could play incredibly well, but they were unaware of their poor pedaling technique. Make sure you stay with me throughout the video because I'm going to share some unique tips about how to break bad pedaling habits. Before we dive into the do's and don'ts of pedaling, I want to quickly talk about the pedal markings that you're going to see in your music. Sometimes you're going to see arrows like this, and it means to change the pedal on the arrow. Change, change, change. Sometimes you'll see pedal markings like this, pedal down, and then you'll see an asterisk sign after, and that means to release the pedal. Sometimes there will be no pedal markings, so stay tuned to learn how to add tasteful pedaling. Okay, let's dive into the do's and don'ts of pedaling. So my first don't is don't sit too close or too far away from the keys. If you sit too close, and I see this quite frequently, then it's difficult to get clean pedal changes because it's going to feel uncomfortable to lift your foot high enough to get a clean change. If you sit too far back, then really your toes are the only thing that's controlling the pedal, and that can be difficult to even push the pedal down. Plus, it pushes our weight back here, and we really want to be leaning into the keys. So check your distance with your arm. You want to be covering the front half of the bench when you're sitting, and then when your arm is straight out, your fist should be able to touch the fall board. My next tip for you is don't lift your heel off the ground. This will make pedaling really difficult, and you won't have control over how far you push the pedal down, and it'll be difficult to change the pedal quickly because you're using large motor skills. So keep your heel on the floor, and you really should have the ball of your foot touching the front part of the pedal. My next tip is don't lift your toes off of the pedal. This can be noisy and it can distract people from your beautiful playing. It can also slow you down if you're trying to change quickly on fast pieces. If you're getting value from this video, do me a huge favor and give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing if you'd like to see more piano lesson videos like this. We really appreciate your support. Okay, back to the do's and don'ts. My next tip is don't hold the pedal too long. When we're using the pedal, we don't want to blend too many notes because the notes will lack clarity and there will be a muddy sound. So in that Rachmaninoff prelude, if I wasn't doing enough pedal changes, it would sound like this. Pretty bad. So when in doubt, use your ears and listen for when you should do pedal changes. A good general rule is to change on new chords. So in this piece, for example, the left hand has the chord changes. Occasionally, the right hand has the chord changes, like in Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. So figure out with each piece which hand has the chord changes, and then practice that hand separately with the pedal and get really good at the pedal changes hands separate before trying it hands together with the pedal. Okay, my next tip is very important. Don't lift your hand and your foot at the same time because you're going to get a choppy sound. So if I lift my hand and my foot together, you can hear the hiccup. So wait until you push the keys and then your foot's going to go up, down. At the same time. You can practice this technique with a simple C major scale, just playing the scale in triads. You're going to want to lift your foot and your hand at the same time because that's going to feel natural, but that's going to make it sound choppy. So again, make sure you wait until you push the keys, and then your foot can go up, down. You can also practice this with a middle C. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This leads nicely into my next tip. Don't change the pedal too slowly. Your foot needs to lift up and push back down in one quick movement so that you can connect the notes that your fingers can't connect. So with this Chopin prelude, sometimes I see a student lift up on the new chord change and then back down on the next chord, up, down. So you can hear the choppiness there. Your foot should go up, down on the pedal change, up, down on one chord, up, down. I want to take a quick break on the do's and don'ts and talk about how to break bad pedaling habits. You're probably wondering about this pillow. Well, I've had to get really creative with some of my students to help them with their pedaling. So I've got some students that consistently put their left foot behind the bench or underneath the bench, and this shifts their weight back. So I'll put a pillow on their foot, and this reminds them to keep their foot there, and then they can lean into the keys, and that foot will help support their body weight. It works pretty well. Another trick that I've tried is having my students have a shoe on one foot and no shoe on the other foot. And just that awkward feel is a reminder of the new pedal technique that we're working on. And it works surprisingly well. Okay, this next tip is really important. Don't start playing a new piece with the pedal right away, especially if it's a difficult piece and you're struggling to sight read it hands together. You really should be able to play a piece well, hands separate and hands together before adding the pedal. And the pedal masks a lot of things that we're doing incorrectly with our fingers. So we should be working on making a piece sound as beautiful as possible without the pedal before adding it. So we should be able to connect the notes within the slur with our fingers. And then when we do add the pedal, it will sound ultra smooth and polished. Now that you know some of the important basics of using the damper pedal, I encourage you to watch my mom's piano lesson on pedaling, because there's many more damper pedal techniques that we need to practice to refine our sound as pianists. Every piece that we play will use a different pedal technique. In this video, she talks about different techniques like using half pedal, quarter pedal, and even finger pedaling. And she'll tell you when to use these techniques. So we hope to see you there.